In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the media tab within DaVinci Resolve. This is where we import and organize all of the media that we're going to be working with in our project. Now, the media tab also has some other really cool features in it, like annotations and scene cut detection, which we're also going to be learning about. I personally love that this is its own tab within the program because it just gives me a lot more space to import and organize all of my files. And once that's done, I move on to the next tab and this one just stays out of the way. So this is a pretty straightforward section of DaVinci, so let's just jump right into it. So this is what you're going to see when you first open up the media tab. Now, the media tab is the first one here in the bottom left. And this is what it looks like when there is no media within your media tab. So let's start off with just the interface. So we'll start off from the top left and we'll go down from there. So this is media storage. This is where you can search your computer or your hard drives for media in other places and reveal it in here. So for example, let's check out the project that we're currently working on. We can see that these are folders within this drive here. Now, personally, I don't like to view things in the icon view. I like to see them in a list. It makes things a lot easier for me. And we have the folder that we're working on here, OnePlus Phone Project. And we have our video folder here. I'm just going to click on this clip in the media storage and it's going to load it up in my preview window right here. Now, I don't want to play back with audio, so I'm just going to mute it right there. And we can scrub through and watch our clip. So this is a preview window that will allow us to preview any media that we have selected over here to the left, and also in the bottom here, which is our media pool. So we can preview individual clips and we can drag clips that we want into our media pool like this. So we could take it, just drag it in there, and it's going to ask us if we want to change the project frame rate. Now, because we already modified our project settings in the project settings option down here, I do not want to change the project frame rate. So we're going to click Don't Change. And we've successfully imported that one clip into our media pool here. Now, the way that I typically work is I won't just go in and select individual clips and drag them down here. I might do that later on when I'm just, bringing in individual pieces of media that I've downloaded from the internet or something like that later on. But the way that we want to import this project is we want to import everything because we've already organized all of our footage. It's in the correct folder structure, so everything's really organized. We wouldn't want to just import individual clips. So the way that I like to work is to bring everything in and then go through the process of refining our selects and deleting the garbage and cutting out the stuff that we don't want. So this is the actual media pool down here, and the media pool is something that we'll be able to access through all of these tabs here later on. So all of the media that we're bringing in here, we want to keep it organized because we're going to be going back to this media pool in all the different tabs in DaVinci. We can access the media pool. We can see it's here in the edit tab. It's over here in the cut tab. We'll also be able to access it in Fusion and the color tab, Fairlight, all of it. So because we are going to be coming back to the media pool, we want to make sure that we keep it organized and everything is kind of structured in here. Organization is key. So I'm just going to delete this clip because I don't want to bring in just one clip. I want to bring in the entire folder, the entire video folder for our project. So I'll go into the original root folder here where we can see the entire video folder. And what I'm going to do is just click and drag and drop this entire folder into the media pool. We're going to get the same question. Do you want to change the frame rate? Do not change. And it's going to bring all of that footage in. Now we have an issue. It brought in all of this footage, but if we take a look at it, it's all just in one folder. We don't have that folder structure that we spent so much time creating over here with each individual day and then with each camera within each day. So what can we do to maintain that folder structure? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let's select everything, hit Command A, and we are going to delete all of that because we don't want that. We want the folder structure. What we're going to do is go back to that root folder over here. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to drag this video folder, but instead of dragging it into this area here, we're going to drag it into this area right here, right under this little master right here. We're going to drop it, and that is going to allow us to maintain that folder structure. We're going to click Don't Change. We'll give it a second, and we can see that our folder structure is here. Yay, this is super important. It would be absolutely horrendous if we had to remake that entire folder structure in here again. So if we click master, we can open up video and we'll be able to see all of our folders right in here. And just like in media storage, if we open up one of our clips, we can select it and view it in our preview window right here. Now down here in our media pool, we can see a lot of information about our clips. So in this case, we can view the frames here, the frames per second, and we can see what resolution it was shot at, what type, you know, if it's just video or if it's just audio or if it's both here, how many frames, all that information, all of that kind of metadata can be seen here. And we can choose to organize our footage based on any of these categories here simply by clicking on them, and it will organize all of the media based on what you've selected up here. So if we want to organize things by the amount of frames, we can simply select that and it'll go from highest frames to lowest, or the frames per second, anything that you want. Now, we can actually add columns to this simply by right-clicking, and we can select different things that we would like to add. So one thing that I like to add is usage. And what usage basically allows us to do is to see how many times the clip has actually been used in our project. So later on, you'll see we're going to be going through every single clip in this entire project, laying it down in timelines, and we're going to be cutting out the garbage and deleting a lot of clips that we're not even going to be using. So whenever we go back to the media pool and we go to this usage column, we'll be able to see how many times each clip was actually used in our project. So if there's clips that we accidentally shot, or if there's any clips that are not being used in any timelines, then we can see those here and we can delete them off of our drive if we don't want them. So one thing to note is that if there's a folder I find myself constantly having to go back to import media from, I can actually save it to my favorites right here. So in this case, let's say, we're going to be going back and forth into this project file that we're working on right here. So what I can do is click on this root folder here, and I can right click on it and click add folder to favorites. That way it's added to the favorites right here. And that way I won't have to go up here and keep opening up a bunch of folders to access this one folder. I can simply just click into it right here, and I will have quick access to those folders. This is really handy if you find yourself constantly going back to certain asset folders like sound effects or lens flares, stuff like that. You can just add those to your favorites right here, and they'll be ready to go whenever you want. You won't have to click into a bunch of folders to keep finding it every single time. It's just here in your favorites. Okay, so we have all of our footage in our media pool down here. Now, let's say we didn't have all of our footage as organized as it is right now. We might want to drag things from one folder to another. Well, to do that in one viewing panel can definitely be challenging. So DaVinci gives us an option to split things up over here, which is really cool. And I personally don't use this feature a lot, but I see myself in the future, if my projects are getting messy and I need to reorganize things, drag things into folders, we can change the viewing option right here. So the layout right here, we can click the drop down and we can select this. So now we have two media pool windows here, which we can use to, drag things from one folder to another and vice versa. It just makes this space a little bit more interactive and just makes it easier to organize files in this way. We can also change the layout from this hamburger view to pancake view. So the two media windows would be stacked on top of each other versus side by side. But I'm just going to bring that back to our standard layout. And next to that button, we have different viewing options here. So this is the list view. I always keep it on list view. That's just easier for me. You can also view everything as icons. I find this to actually be less efficient because your eyes are traveling from left to right and down versus just list view. Your eyes are just going up and down. To have to go left and right and up and down, that's chaos for me, so I'm not down for that. But feel free to use whatever you want. And next to that, we have this metadata view. And if we click on that, then when we have an actual clip selected, it shows us a little bit more information about the clip. Now, we can see that the metadata isn't really that helpful for us because it's just a bunch of numbers. Maybe the time could be helpful for us or the date, but there isn't really that much information that I would find useful here in terms of like organizing my footage and stuff. So what we could do is actually select a clip or select multiple clips, and we can go up into the inspector right here in the top right. Now, normally you'd probably have this video button selected, but if we go to the right here under File, we're actually able to edit the metadata for the selected clips. So we can add information like clip color. We can write some information about the take, the shot, the scene, the reel. So this can be very, very handy, especially if you're doing something like a short film where you have, one scene with multiple takes. You can label each take. In my case, would I do this for a project like this? No, because that is very time consuming, but you are able to batch edit the metadata like this. So let's say, I want to add a clip color to all of these. We can see I added it and it added it to all of the selected clips. So, if you wanted to maybe label all of the clips from a certain day with a certain color, you can totally do that. Or, if everything in this one folder was shot with a specific camera, I can add that information here. So this was the OnePlus 9, but that's every single shot in this project was shot on the phone, so that wouldn't really be that helpful. But I do know in like short film scenarios and stuff like that, this can be very handy. And if you got the budget, then it could be great to just hire someone else to add in all the metadata for your project, and that way that information can come in handy later on, and you'd actually be able to sort your footage in your media pool based on the scene and take, which can be very useful in certain situations. So just remember that you have the option to add in the metadata and change it for all of these clips. Now I'm going to go back into the list view here. So we also have some other options in the inspector here under video and audio. So let's go into video, and with a clip selected, we're actually able to make adjustments to this clip. So we can change things like the zoom. So that's like the scale, the position, the rotation, all of this stuff, the pitch, the yaw. And if we ever want to reset something, we can simply just click this reset button on the right, or we can reset everything in that section by pressing the reset button in the top right. We also have other options like the cropping. We can also add other things like dynamic zoom, which we're going to be talking about later on. This is not the place that I would do it. I would add dynamic zoom, and honestly even just play around with the transform, cropping, all this stuff. I would just do that in the cut tab or the edit tab. The media tab, I don't really see this as the place to do that stuff. You can, and all of this is available for you to do so. But personally, I don't do any of this here. We also have, other options here. We could change the composite mode. So that's kind of like playing with the opacity, the way that the image opacity is overlaid. And we can also just change the opacity here. Now, maybe if you're working with a bunch of GoPros, you might want to, batch select all of those GoPros and go into lens correction. You can analyze them and change the distortion of the GoPros, because GoPros are like fisheye, right? So everything's a bit distorted. You can fix that distortion in here, but honestly, that's not something I would spend time doing in the media tab. I would just do that in the cut or edit tab, but feel free to do so. And we also have options in the audio settings here as well. We can change things like volume, pan, which is how much the volume is coming from the left side versus the right side here, the pitch of the audio, and a bunch of other things, which at this stage of the course is not important, but it's good to know that these are options that can be found in the inspector in the media tab. And next to the inspector, we have this metadata tab, which allows us to see more metadata of our selected clip. The frame rate up here, the resolution, the audio information, stuff like that. Now in our viewing window here, we can zoom in and out with our mouse. And my mouse here has, the scroll wheel, which is also a button in itself. And in DaVinci, we call that the middle mouse button. And if we click the middle mouse button and drag around, we are able to drag and move around our preview, which is very, very, very handy. And you will be using this a lot later on. Now, if you're using a MacBook, you can simply just use the mouse pad to move around like that. You can pinch to zoom in and out. But I do prefer using a mouse. I find that a mouse is very handy. Now in our preview window, we also have this selection down here, which allows us to visually see the footage of our clip, or we can choose to see the audio of our clip. In some situations, it can be handy to just view the waveform of a clip to select certain parts of it and stuff like that. But in this case, don't really need to, but it's good to know that that is an option down here. And below that, we have annotations, which I'm going to get into in the next video. So I'm going to bring this back to source. And now next to that, we have this little jog wheel here. If we click it and drag, we can move forwards and backwards. It's just another way to preview our clip. It allows us to kind of change the speed at which we preview forwards and backwards. I don't really use that. I'd prefer to use the shortcuts 1, 2, and 3, which we will be learning all about later on. And next to that, we have the standard play, pause, start of clip, end of clip controls. That's all straightforward stuff. And we also have this button, and this allows us to loop playback. So if we press play with loop selected, it's going to continuously loop the clip and not stop. Now in our preview window up here, we're also able to make in and out points on our selected clip. So let's say we're scavenging through our drive over here and we found a clip that we want, but we don't want to import the entire clip. We only want to import a section of it. This is a terrible example. Let me find something that actually looks half decent. So, let's say this isn't a massive project and we only want to import a couple clips. So in that situation, it would make more sense. This clip, let's say we only want a little section of it. What I can do is hit 4 to mark as an in point, and then 5 to mark as an out point. Now that is the Ravenclaw keyboard shortcut for in and out. You can also use I and O for the in and out points. Those are the standard in and out shortcuts. Or we can use these buttons over here to the bottom right, mark in and mark out. These will allow us to select the in point and the out point. For this case, let's just use this little section here as an example, 4 and 5. Now let's go back into our root folder just so we can see this clip clearly. Once we have our selection here, we can simply just click on the clip and drag it down here. And if we double click on this, we can see that it didn't import the entire clip. It only imported that in and out point. So that's something really important to keep in mind. If you don't want to bring an entire clip in, you can simply just select the in and out point of that clip and only bring a portion of it into your media pool.